Okay,
Okay.
now it's starting.
Okay. So I am Ankita, and before coming to US in 2014, I did my undergrad and Masters of Social Work, specializing in medical and psychiatric social work in India. And during that time, I first started working with children with disabilities at a school, and that was a special school only for children with disabilities. And we had children range from 3 to 18. And I witnessed that teachers, like as like I was also volunteering in that school as a teacher, we were not prepared like how to teach children. It's usually like children are coming and kind of parents finding a space where they could keep their children for a few hours and in expectation of they could learn something, but it was not happening because we did not know how to teach. So in 2014, I applied at Illinois, like University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, in special education, and I was like, oh, I really want to know like how to teach only children with disabilities. But what I learned was like here we are not only teaching children with disabilities, in an like secluded place, but we are doing inclusive education where all children with varied abilities and disabilities could learn. So that was like an eye-opening experience for me. I was like so glad that I could come and land in Illinois. And during the same time, I got a teaching assistantship where I could teach at a like university's not a lab school, under the university, but it was a Reggio Emilia school, but previously it was a lab school as well. So I taught at the preschool in an inclusive setting, and because we had Reggio Emilia as a like framework, or the approach, I could learn like the inclusive education, working with families, and looking at children as a decision maker as well. So we could, our curricula was like project based. We could ask children what they want to learn, and we would teach that topic. And it's a very democratic process. We could ask like, okay, here are five topics came. Which one you want to learn more? And they would say insect, and then we would talk about insect and bringing that in like insect as a curricula for the whole semester where they could learn in many different ways. And then at the end of the semester we again talk about what you learn, what you want to learn again. So that was my whole masters in Illinois. And during that time I wrote my thesis on children of like siblings of children with disabilities in India and their perceptions about disabilities and inclusion. And I published a paper with my then master's advisor. And then I went back to India in 2018 to work with UNICEF project, and that was like primarily aiming to train rural teachers in India so that they can teach effectively all children. I came back in 2019 again, and I started my PhD at the University of Kansas and specializing in early childhood unified. And early childhood unified is more about looking like preparing teachers who could teach all children and specifically support children with disabilities in an inclusive setting. And that again helped me a lot to learn as a supervisor, as an instructor as well, because they are like I taught only probably two schools in the United States, but we had undergraduate and master students who are going to multiple schools, multiple settings from EI to birth to like ours is like birth to eight and unified. And during my PhD program, I primarily like worked as a university supervisor, like supervising undergraduate and master student, as well as doing a lot of research because KU special ed is very research intensive. And my research interest primarily is in equity and inclusion, where we like where I explored how we can look at what teachers need and what teachers already have as a support system to develop family professional partnerships. Because if we look at IDEA, it does talk about partnering with families. So how, and we bring lot of different research about culturally responsive strategies partnering with families without knowing at exactly what teachers need, and how we can translate research into practice. So that has been my focus. My PhD was understanding what teachers need and what supports can we provide so that they can develop equitable partnerships with refugee families and immigrant and refugee families, and all families with marginalized identities are my research focus. And I have been publishing on that topic for a few, maybe 1.5 years now. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. That seems like really like a really strong background, for like helping people with disabilities and focusing on that inclusion aspect of things. Have
Thank
you,
you.
yeah, have you noticed like any cultural differences, between like India and the United States and how the approaches are with, children and people with disabilities?
Yeah, so one thing, and this is only from my own perspective, I cannot speak for all Indians or all the United States
Yeah.
school setting systems, but because of a strong law like IDEIA we have and the Department of Ed, like having it in at the federal level, it helps a lot to implement that at the school and the district and the state level. And especially we have, Parent Training Institute, the PTI, so that having that law changed that. And before IDIA we had other laws, like from, if we look at from 60s to 80s, 80s to 90s, and then 2004, it is kind of like set the landscape of how it looks like, because it's not only that a good thing to do, it is the right thing and it is legal. So when we bring that legality in it, schools and the districts and the states are like, they are answerable and they have to provide the appropriate service. And the implementation of law is also like, in third world country we have great laws, but the implementation looks different. So what was the most astonishing thing, and I'm still getting goosebumps, because even after, like, I write all the time how we can make it better, but I also acknowledge what we already have. And that's what gives us a lot of scope to kind of, critically looking at it to make it better. Whereas in India, we have great laws as well, but due to systemic level issues, and it could be not only just resources, it's the right intention and the people knowing it to disseminate. The law is there, but to disseminate that information at various level is also important. And
Yeah.
that's where we lag. And my own niece is she is blind, like legally blind, and she's the first Indian female student who is studying computer science in India. And she could reach that because it's a very personal level, because my family could afford that. We have that privilege, even though at systemic level, in one identity she
Mhm.
could, be marginalized, but then in other identities, when it comes to play, she
Mhm.
has that privilege and she could reach there. So many, and it's millions of children where they are, like, marginalized in various like multiple identities. It could be socioeconomic, it could be parents educational exposure and training, it
Mhm.
could be their own like, rural versus, like, geographic location, rural versus urban. There are millions of children
Mhm.
are denied to have access to schools even. And not even, I'm talking about, K through 12, it could be even at a primary level. So there's a huge gap, but I hope we learn from the best and contextualize it and culturally make it appropriate
Mhm.
to move forward with inclusion as well in India.
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like education and knowledge about the laws is extremely important for helping people at various levels in society.
And it goes back also the funding, like when we have
Yeah.
the appropriate funding, so when state gets that, they can implement it, they can provide the free appropriate public education.
Hmm.
When we don't have that, we see examples of so many countries, even after having that law, it might fall apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So funding is kind of like the punch behind the power of the words. It's like it's the way to get things done. It's the way to set up the system.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was also wanting to talk a little bit about the pyramid program today, if that's okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So what would you say is the purpose of the pyramid program?
So, do you mean about Utah pyramid model or in general pyramid model that happens in the in United States and some other countries as well?
Let's start with the general, the broader pyramid model.
Yeah, so the broader pyramid model is, and same with Utah pyramid model, like we are aligned and it's like completely like contextualizing it just in Utah. But the whole like aim is to address social emotional development and then providing a strategies to address challenging behaviors.
Mhm.
So it has like three tier. Well, the first tier is the universal, where all of the things, like whatever we do, we try to address for all children's social emotional development. For example, schedules and routines, and we know they are like developmentally appropriate practices. When we have that, children know what comes next, children know what we just did.
Mhm.
Having that structure helps all the children, whether children with delays, children like typically developing,
Mhm.
we just address everyone.
Mhm.
And then we have the second tier, where when we see that after providing universal strategies, still there are children who need more, something more, not beyond that universal. Then there is like small group instructions, and there could be some other strategies in the classroom, like how to build friendships,
Mhm.
how to problem solve. We provide that.
Mhm.
And then, if we see that even after tier 2, there are children who need extensive and intensive, but without these two, we cannot put at the pyramids at the top level.
Mhm.
So we need to make sure that the bottom tier is at place, and then the second tier, when we are doing it all like really appropriately, still there could be children, maybe the number is low now because we already put all the bottom layer, we address all the children, so the tier 3 now is lesser, but it's more intensive behavioral strategies that we provide, so that we are, and like science and evidences show that social emotional development is the key aspect in later life as well. So
Mhm.
we are trying, and it's an evidence based practice where we are addressing all children's social emotional development, as well as we are providing interventions for the ones who really need it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so, how do you implement the tiers in like a classroom or like an early intervention setting?
So one is like the way I can now talk about Utah pyramid model specifically.
Yeah.
So what we have external coaches
Mhm.
that is employed by the Utah pyramid model project. Where, as an example, like I am an external coach for school YZ.
Mhm.
I go there as an external coach, and we have an MOU signed where
Mhm.
we say if I am the external coach, the program will provide an internal coach
Mhm.
who would be responsible to look, support the teachers, the training that we are providing being implemented in the classroom. And
Mhm.
I directly support the internal coach directly support the teachers.
Mhm.
And internal coaches can be employed by the program or by the district. But for my case, it's always like usually they are employed by the program. So I can talk just for that.
Mhm.
And now I go there to train the teachers. And we start with tier 1, so that if tier 1 is not being implemented and not being trained on, tier 2 cannot be. So we
Mhm.
really, really focus on tier 1. First, we start with as well, like, PIDS, like pyramid model implementation data system,
Mhm.
where we also in the MOUs, we say that teacher, like all the information, like pyramid model professionals, like the schools professionals, children with the consent form, and we have it so that we can make a database decision making.
Mhm.
And within PAIDS, we have also like we can talk about like the put the data on like children's challenging behaviors, so
Mhm.
we can know that when we are providing all the tier 1 information, like implementation, still who are these children who are exhibiting challenging behaviors. And in that form, we also put what happened just before, antecedent,
Mhm.
what happens now, that is behavior, and
Mhm.
what happens later, the consequence. When we have the ABC, it's not just the children, we
Yeah.
get an understanding of all the whole classroom or
Mhm.
the adults in the classroom, right?
Mhm.
Because it could be an like this functional behavior assessment. When we have that, it gives us lot of data,
Yeah.
how we are addressing the challenging behaviors, how we are reinforcing it, so we can make database decision making. So the first 11 months or so, we spend on providing training on tier 1, and at the same time we also do the practice based coaching, where
Mhm.
I am providing, like, I am supporting the internal coach, and internal coach working with the teachers directly to understand the goal setting and action planning, what the teachers goal they have on specific topics like schedules or routines or transitions, anything. on 11 topics for preschool, and then they do the observation. So I observe along with the internal coach to see how that particular goal that the teacher said they are implementing. Then me and the internal coach again sit together to understand what does the internal coach think, what went well, and then the internal coach can talk to the teachers then about the observations and the feedback. And that is how that circle goes round and round. Like we have the same process for every topic until they reach their action, like goal setting and action planning. And we
Mhm.
have strengths and needs assessment through which we learn if 80% or more they achieve on all eight, like 11 topics, they covered tier 1 preschool. If they have not received like 80% or more, we hold on our second tier 2 training until they achieve there. As well as we have reliability tool, that teapot for 2 to 5 years, and tipitos below that age group is like understanding how particular teacher are implementing for each topic, how they are implementing that in the classroom. Again, 80% or more, the teacher receives teapot observation that shows that they are aligned, or their practices are reliable for pyramid model.
Mhm. All right. Yeah, that seems like an extensive process. And I love the fact that you guys have the external and internal coaches too, because we know that teacher burnout is like a huge problem in the field. And like being alone and not feeling supported is like a main reason why teachers leave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so how do you identify children who need targeted social emotional supports or like, higher supports than just tier one?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, as I said, first we have like functional behavior assessment. It's
Mhm.
again evidence-based. So it's not just like, good practice is good practice. So it's not
Mhm.
just pyramid model. FBA have been used by many, many programs who use or who implement pyramid model or not. So functional behavior assessment is a thing that teachers have been using to understand children exhibiting consistently challenging behaviors,
Mhm.
as well as like programs have different ones. Like for example, PEDS, we have like ASQ social emotional one,
Mhm.
and they have their and they could have some different tools as well. But pyramid as PEDS has that ASQAC, and that is there to identify, of course, to go through. And then not only that, also we work with the families, as family is the essential component. So receiving families input and telling them what schools are doing. As I said, peers kind of helps us to make the decisions together, not just we as an external coach doing it, not an internal coach. We can all look at the data and
Mhm.
make the meaning of it. So here the families and the teachers and the administrators can be on the same page, and it is up to them how they are making the meaning of the data and understanding what should be the next step. There could be families may say, no, what's happening at this school, I don't agree with that.
Mhm.
And we will then brainstorm like, okay, what does that mean? How can we support your children, or how they can? And for my own research aligns me with and incorporating families' knowledge as well. Not just we are telling them, we are
Mhm.
listening to them. So it is like a process where we all work collaboratively to identify the child and understanding what could be the next step.
Yeah. So it's kind of like working together with the families kind of as a team and not just talking down to families and ignoring what their needs and concerns are.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely what you said.
Yeah. So it kind of seems like that might have been a problem in the past where it was like professionals talk down to family members or the people who have the family member with the child with the disability or delay.
Yeah, yeah. Here, pyramid model really does a good job of like, emphasizing again and again how even like for an example, like behavior expectations and rules. Lot of schools may have different rules, but they may not align with the family's expectations, right? So what pyramid model emphasizes and encourages is like when you are deciding what should be the classroom behavior expectations, talk to the families, understand that what they think that their children should learn. And when you have that, like you send a survey or maybe a newsletter, hear back from the families, and classroom should reflect what children's background is or the family is, right? So pyramid model does all the time says that not just you as a professional taking the decision, but take the decision together with the families.
Yeah, I suppose that's how you also tie that cultural inclusion again too. So that way that family is like super important and how their culture
Mhm.
and how they operate is like works is in congruence with the pyramid program.
And
Yeah.
same with division for early childhood that talks about families' funds of knowledge that we need to look because each
Mhm.
family has their and like regardless of their linguistic background or race and ethnicity, it
Mhm.
talks about families' own funds of knowledge that they have, and each family has their own, and how we can include that into our classroom curricula and activities.
Yeah, definitely. I know we talked a little bit about the importance of funding before. How do you feel like, things with funding are going for the pyramid program in Utah specifically?
Things a little uncertain at this moment.
Mhm.
So we still do not know what exactly it could look like. Still now we are working on it and we are trying to figure out as rest of the higher education institutes and many educational projects. We are also at the like at a juncture where we are trying to figure out what may look like in the future. But at this moment we are working as we were doing our stuff a few months ago.
Mhm.
So and we are hopeful that we will have the funding because it's we want to provide the appropriate services to all the children, their families, and teachers because, as you say, teacher burnout is real. So
Mhm.
we really want to provide support to the teachers so that they and evidence says that teachers feel most challenging when challenging behaviors occurring in the classroom. So
Mhm.
we want to work on like providing appropriate services so that teacher retainment is high,
Mhm.
and we are hopeful that we will have that.
Yeah. What would you say the consequences would be? This is speculation, of course, because we don't know, but like, what are the consequences if funding is not secured or if funding is lost? Mhm.
Yeah, it would not be the or not only that it is unexpected. It children with disabilities, children are at risk of being diagnosed with disabilities, would be at large of being disadvantaged.
Mhm.
And as an early childhood professional, I want each and every child to get what they deserve and what they need and providing appropriate services. So, if social emotional development evidence suggests that it is so important and challenging behaviors as well,
Mhm.
I feel it would be a setback for us if in any like we are just now speculating that if it happens, we don't know that whether it will happen, but in
Mhm.
speculation, it would not be something that we want or we desire for.
Mhm.
And I really I'm optimistic, so I hope that we have the funding and we have the people at the right place who would advocate for that, and families and children children of Utah getting all the services that they need to go to the school, and they are prepared when they are going to the K through 12, not being expelled or suspended for their challenging behaviors, which could easily be addressed when they were in pre-K or in early intervention.
Yeah. So it kind of sounds like the sooner that services are obtained and the sooner we can start working on some of these behaviors that are forming, the better the outcomes are later in life.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that evidence suggests, like, if we look back, yeah, US has so many wonderful research. And if we look back, the examples are already there, what preschool and early intervention
Mhm.
can do for their success in later age. So, yes, it just goes back like we need to provide services at earliest as being diagnosed or at the process of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so why would you say early intervention is extremely important, like other reasons?
So, if we look at the again, looking at the evidence, looking at the CTC's
Mhm.
even findings, we know the brain development, Harvard's brain development, have been doing a great job for years showing that how our brain gets like like the first 3 years, the most important 5 years, and the more it is tender, more it is malleable. All the challenges and all the trauma that we, if we can prevent, it is better. So developmentally, anything that we do at earliest, and it's just like even if you don't look at like if just I have a flu, if I look at it at the very beginning, I go to a doctor, I get like better well, right? Rather than sitting on it and not working on it. The same way, early intervention, if we look at the tender age, when we provide the appropriate services, it could be speech language, it could be gross motor, it could be other developmental disabilities. The interventions that we provide like at the earliest, there are high chances of like overcoming that or getting better at it. If we cannot overcome completely, we are providing the tools for the success of the later age.
Yeah, yeah. So it seems like outcome is extremely necessary when we're talking about early intervention services.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if we look at it, like providing timely support for children with developmental delays or disabilities can significantly like improve, their communication skill, their social emotional development, and cognitive skills. So,
Hmm.
and then we are also not only helping children, we are also helping the families then,
Hmm.
because positive interactions with their children, then there are chances of happening it more rather than families are struggling in figuring out what's happening with their children. If we
Hmm.
provide the appropriate tool to the families, we are helping them as well. So we are helping not only just the child, multiple adults at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like support for teachers, support for families, support for the child.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
three levels of support.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
When we
yeah.
go back to Bronfenbrenner's theory, like
Mhm.
it's like happening child is at the center. If we look at the micro and the macro and the meso system, it's not just the child, it's associated the whole society. So
Yeah,
when we are helping a child, we are helping the whole society.
yeah, yeah. I love that. That's very powerful. And any closing words that you want to pass down to the students who will be watching this video, or insights?
I'm glad that you all are interested in early childhood education and early intervention. I'm very passionate towards like early childhood, and I hope you all become just not only in this profession but be an advocate for children with disabilities, because inclusion without disabilities is not an inclusion. So we all need to work together to make the society more inclusive, especially for children with disabilities and their families.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. All right.
You
I think that's
know.
everything that I have, unless you have anything more you want to add.
No, you had such insightful, important questions. So I'm glad that you asked. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.